It was supposed to be nothing more than dinner. Just a quiet evening with family I hadn't seen in months. The kind of gathering where people pretend everything is fine, where small talk hides the silence that's been stretching for years. I told myself it would be ordinary, maybe awkward but harmless. I was wrong. When I stepped inside my uncle's house, the first thing I noticed wasn't the warmth of the lights or the smell of roasted chicken. It was the silence before they noticed me. A pause, too sharp to be natural. Then came the smiles. My uncle stood up, arms open, a little too rehearsed. My aunt chimed in from the kitchen, her voice cheerful, almost musical. "You're just in time. We were waiting for you." The dining room was already set. My place had been carefully prepared, plate gleaming, silverware shining. Even the napkin was folded just so. At my seat, a glass waited for me. Dark red liquid inside. Wine, I thought at first, but then I noticed it wasn't wine at all. Cranberry juice. Exactly the kind I used to drink as a kid, except I hadn't touched it in years. Still your favorite, right? My aunt asked, sliding the dish of potatoes closer to my side of the table. She smiled like she already knew the answer, like saying no would ruin the game we were all playing. I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, still my favorite. My cousin barely looked up from her phone. She gave a small nod in my direction, then went back to scrolling, her screen reflecting in her glasses. Same old indifference. That didn't bother me. What bothered me was how carefully everything else was arranged, like this night had been rehearsed. I sat down, and the conversation began the way it always did. How's work? Still living in the same apartment? Traffic's terrible these days, isn't it? Normal words, normal questions. But underneath, it felt hollow, like we were actors following a script we didn't believe in. I laughed when I was supposed to laugh. I smiled at the right times. I played my role, the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who didn't cause trouble. But even as I chewed on the chicken and listened to my uncle's rant about road construction, something in me knew this wasn't just dinner. This was something else. Halfway through the meal, just when I thought maybe I was overthinking, my phone buzzed in my lap. No one noticed. My uncle was still talking about road closures, my aunt was nodding along, and my cousin was tapping on her phone with one hand while eating with the other. I glanced down, just for a second, and froze. A text. No name, no emojis, no casual tone. Just 4 words, "Don't drink the juice." My stomach clenched. I blinked, reading it again, hoping I'd misunderstood. But it was there, plain as day, simple, direct, like someone wanted to sound calm but couldn't hide the urgency bleeding through the words. I looked up at the glass in front of me. Cranberry juice, dark and ordinary. Just like always. Only now it didn't feel ordinary at all. My aunt caught my eye across the table. She smiled, the same polite, too bright smile she'd given me the moment I walked in. "You haven't touched your drink yet," she said lightly. "It's still your favorite, isn't it?" My throat tightened. "Yeah," I murmured, pushing my fork into the potatoes. "I'm just pacing myself." I forced a chuckle, but my hand trembled under the table. I glanced at my phone again. No follow-up message. Just silence. Whoever sent it hadn't made a mistake. That much I was sure of. I thought of excuses. Maybe it was spam, some weird prank. Maybe the message wasn't even meant for me. But deep down, I knew better. The words hit too close, too specific. My cousin suddenly looked up from her phone. "You okay?" she asked, her tone flat, almost bored. "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just tired." "Long day," she shrugged. Went back to scrolling. But I couldn't shake the feeling anymore. My heart pounded harder with every second. The air felt heavier, like the walls were inching closer, sealing me in. For the first time all evening, I realized this wasn't just a dinner. This was a trap. I sat there staring at that glass like it was something alive. My aunt kept talking, my uncle kept ranting, my cousin kept scrolling, and all of it felt rehearsed. Too smooth. Too ordinary. I slipped my phone under the table, shielding the screen with my hand, and typed back one word. "Why?" The reply came instantly. Because it's not juice. My hand went cold. My breathing faltered, but I forced myself to smile, to nod along like I was still listening. I pushed a piece of chicken around my plate, pretending I wasn't seconds away from panicking. I typed again. Who are you? This time no reply. Just silence. I looked at the glass again, watching the way the light caught the surface of the liquid. It looked so normal, familiar, comforting even. That was the worst part. I remembered being a kid, sitting at this very same table, drinking that same juice. Back then, it was safe. Back then, I trusted them, but tonight, it felt poisoned. My aunt leaned in, her tone sweet but edged with something sharper. You really should try it, she said. It's just like you remember, I forced a laugh. Later, I'm pacing myself. Her eyes lingered on me a beat too long. Then she nodded and turned back to the potatoes, pretending not to notice the way my hand gripped the fork so tightly my knuckles turned white. And then it happened. My cousin set down her phone, finally interested in the conversation. She glanced at my untouched glass and muttered under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear, she's not drinking it. My aunt and uncle exchanged a look, quick, subtle, but I saw it. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't me imagining shadows. This was real, and whatever was in that glass, it wasn't cranberry juice. As I stared at that untouched glass, memories began to creep in, uninvited. Suddenly, I wasn't at the dinner table anymore. I was 10 years old again, sitting on the same chair, watching my cousin tear through the birthday gifts while I clutched the single secondhand book they'd handed me with a smile. Don't be selfish, my aunt had whispered when I hesitated to share. She's younger, she deserves more. It had always been like that. My needs weren't needs. They were inconveniences. My successes weren't celebrated. They were stepping stones for someone else. When I got my first part-time job, I used the money to buy clothes, just enough to stop wearing my cousin's hand-me-downs. But the moment they found out, the requests began. She needs a new phone. You have extra money now, don't you? And when I refused, silence. Weeks of cold shoulders. A punishment disguised as distance. In college, things only worsened. My cousin didn't work, didn't study seriously, didn't care. But when tuition came due, guess who they called? You're older, you're responsible, you'll help. And if I didn't? I was heartless, selfish, ungrateful. It was a cycle. Always giving. Always bending. Always told that family comes first. But somehow, that never included me. And now, sitting here with a poisoned glass of cranberry juice in front of me, I finally understood. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't out of nowhere. This was who they'd always been. The small manipulations, the emotional blackmail, the guilt-tripping, it had all been leading here. To this moment. Only now, it wasn't about borrowing a few dollars or guilt-tripping me into buying gifts. This time it was darker. They didn't just want my help anymore. They wanted everything. I picked up the glass. My aunt's smile widened, relief flickering across her face like she'd won. My uncle leaned back in his chair, suddenly more relaxed. My cousin put her phone down completely now, eyes fixed on me. I tilted the glass slightly, swirled the dark liquid, and gave a small smile. Tastes like I remember, I said softly, their shoulders eased. They believed me. But what they didn't know, what they could never guess, was that I hadn't taken a sip. The glass never touched my lips. While they were watching my face, they didn't notice my other hand quietly sliding my phone into recording mode beneath the table. I set the glass down carefully, making sure the liquid left just the right trace on the rim, enough to sell the illusion. Then I leaned back in my chair, sighing as if the drink had finally started to hit me. Are you okay? My aunt asked, her voice dripping with false concern. Yeah, I murmured, letting my eyes flutter just a little. Just tired. Maybe a bit dizzy. Her hand brushed my shoulder gently. It's all right, sweetheart. Just rest. They bought it. Completely. Within minutes, they were whispering like predators circling prey. Is she out? My cousin muttered. Almost, my uncle replied. Just give it a minute. I kept my breathing steady, slow, shallow, pretending to sink while every nerve in my body was on fire. Then I felt it, the weight of my phone being lifted from my pocket. Fingers curling around my hand, pressing my thumb gently but firmly against the sensor. The faint vibration of it unlocking. She's in, my cousin whispered. Check the accounts, my aunt hissed. Make it fast, I heard the tapping. Numbers being entered. Whispers of routing codes, account names, amounts, every second burned into the recording. Every word became evidence. Inside, my heart was hammering so hard I thought it might give me away. But outside, I was stone still. They thought I was unconscious, helpless, vulnerable. But the truth was, I was ahead of them the whole time. I left the house that night with a smile that wasn't real. My aunt hugged me, my uncle patted my back, my cousin mumbled a goodnight, and none of them realized I already knew. None of them realized I carried every whispered word, every attempt to rob me, tucked safely inside my phone. The night air felt heavier than usual, but it also carried something I hadn't felt in years. Power. For the first time, I wasn't their victim. I drove straight to the police station, not shaking, not crying, calm, steady, like I was finally walking into the ending I'd been waiting for. I walked up to the desk and told the officer, I need to report a crime. What kind of crime? He asked. They tried to drug me, I said evenly. And they tried to steal everything I have. My own family, the officer blinked. I held up my phone. I recorded all of it. They brought me into a small room, dim and quiet. I pressed play. The whispers filled the air. Is she out? Make it fast. Check her accounts. Just enough to settle it, the officer's expression hardened. He didn't need me to explain. The proof spoke louder than I ever could. Within 48 hours, the police were at their door. My aunt's perfect smile shattered when she realized I hadn't blacked out. My uncle's voice, so full of authority at the dinner table, broke into pleading when the handcuffs clicked shut. My cousin stood frozen, tears streaking her face, whispering, it was just a mistake. But mistakes don't get you arrested. Fraud, conspiracy, administering a substance without consent. The charges stacked higher with every word of that recording. I didn't need to testify about my childhood. I didn't need to explain the years of manipulation, the endless guilt-tripping, the emotional blackmail. The recording was enough. Their own voices condemned them. The house they once guarded like a kingdom? Sold. Legal fees, debts, fines, it all drained them dry. Their empire collapsed one payment at a time, and me? I walked away clean. No guilt, no apologies. No more being the family's safety net. For the first time in my life, I was free. People say family is everything. That blood is thicker than water. That no matter what, you protect the ones you share a name with. But what do you do when the very people who should protect you are the ones sharpening the knives behind your back? I used to think walking away from them would destroy me. That I'd always carry the guilt, the shame, the weight of being the one who finally said, enough. But instead, it set me free. For the first time in my life, I wake up and everything in my world belongs to me. My money, my choices, my peace, my silence. Not a single piece of it stolen or bargained away. Do I regret turning them in? No. They made their choices long before I made mine. The only thing I regret is not walking away sooner. So tell me, what would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet, swallowed it, and kept pretending? Or would you have done what I did, burn the bridge, light the match, and finally walk away? Because sometimes family isn't your blood. Sometimes family is just the people who never try to poison your glass.